My name is Julie, and I would like to tell you a story about my daughter, Emily. I always thought that my story was unique, but contrary to my belief, I have a lot in common with millions of other women across the world. Half of pregnancies are unintended, and about 4 in 10 of these end in abortion, and I am one of those women. I was raised in a loving Christian home. Tragically, I was sexually abused before the age of 12. I lost my virginity at 14 because I felt I didn't have any innocence left, and I thought I was in love. After that youthful relationship crashed and burned, I met a wonderful boy who helped heal my broken heart. And by the time I graduated, we were engaged. I went off to college, but came home every weekend to see him and my family. March of my freshman year came around, and I was at home one night with my mom, my brother, and my fiance, and I started having bad cramps, and nothing I took was relieving the pain. And we decided to go to the ER that night, and that's when the doctor came into the room, patted my leg, and simply said, "You're pregnant." Now, the next 2 weeks in my mind have many memory holes. Um, I know my sanity must have left because looking back, my decisions sound selfish, stupid, naive, out of control. I remember my mom trying to reason with me, and she said she was willing to help raise the baby, but I was too selfish. Couldn't fathom my child growing up and not knowing me as mommy, calling me mommy. Adoption was another decision that I just couldn't go through with because I would not have been able to give her up at birth. And at one point, I actually told my mom that I wanted to throw myself down a flight of stairs and just get it over with. My mind completely took over, shut my heart out of every decision. I told myself that if I didn't feel, look, or think that I was pregnant, that I would just have this procedure and it would be like it never happened. My future husband told me later that he only went along with it because he remembers the doctor telling him that with the medication that I had taken prior to knowing I was pregnant, the baby would probably have some sort of birth defect or defects, or I would miscarry. And I was taking a prescription at the time for IBS. So my next memories are literally flashes. I think sometimes God keeps some memories from us because He's compassionate and He knows it's overwhelming, and He may unlock those in the future um, with His help and strength. I have a flash sitting in the waiting room. I have a flash of being on the table and having what felt like bad cramps while I hear a loud vacuum going. I have another flash of laying in the recovery room trying to drink some juice. And looking back on it, I remember I wasn't alone. The waiting room was over half full. The recovery room was just a row of several recliner type chairs and other women sitting in them. I don't like to think about how many abortions they did in a day. And afterward, I just tried to block it all out. College was needing to be finished, and I had my wedding scheduled for July of that year. And I just went on with my life like nothing happened. My sister was born in November, and I felt a twinge of conscience because my baby would have also been born in October or November. I didn't let myself think about it though. I was living a far different lifestyle than I should have been. Behind my husband's back, I would sneak a cigarette here and there. I started drinking for the first time in my life. We had stopped attending church altogether because we didn't live near the church that we had attended, so we just stopped. I tried to keep attending college, but I quit after 2 years, even though I had a full 4-year scholarship. And after a couple of years, we moved back to my hometown, and a year later, I was pregnant. And after having Nicholas, I knew he needed to grow up in church. So we started going to church with my dad, and during this time, my conscience just started to eat away at me. I didn't know it at the time, but the depression, no sexual drive, insecurities, anger, resentment that stemmed from my abortion were taking control. And I sat there one day and actually contemplated leaving my husband. My son's well-being kept me from making that horrible decision. And a little later, 2 of our best friends, my husband, myself, my dad, my stepmother, we started a Bible study. And the more we searched God's Word, the more I started having the abortion resurface. And I knew I needed God's forgiveness. I knew I needed my dad's forgiveness. See, up until that point, only myself, my husband, a few others knew about the abortion. And I think God dialed the phone for me that night. I was a nervous wreck. And so I called my dad. And hearing his pain and anguish, all the while saying he loved me, still tears at my heart. And thinking that the worst was over, I tried to go about living again. But abortion is like a festering wound that won't heal. And I was sitting in church one Sunday after my second son, Alex, was born, and the Pregnancy Resource Center had a flyer in the bulletin that morning. And any other Sunday, I wouldn't have noticed that flyer, but God spoke to my heart that day. I knew I had to call and become a volunteer, and it's been a real journey since I've started volunteering at the PRC. I have truly found another family there. And I was honest up front about my abortion, but I just didn't want to talk about it. And it took several years of them loving on me to crack the wall that I had put up. I had told God that in order to share my story, I would need strength and courage. Little did I know that God would use the poor decisions of my older son to give me that strength and courage. Telling your children that you've had an abortion can be rather difficult. And I told my oldest son at 14, while we were taking a walk one day, and he had a couple of questions, but Wasn't very vocal about it after that. But my youngest was a little more inquisitive. Um, not very long ago, I asked him one day to help me feed the birds. And we talked, and he asked questions, and we talked some more. And I had read that we needed to give this baby an identity as part of the grieving process. So I asked him what he thought about naming her. And he came up with the idea of all four of us picking our top two names and writing them on paper anonymously. And then we would read the names one at a time and we would vote on them. So we all chose the name Emily. And you might be asking why I'm adamant about her being a girl. Well, God gave me a dream during my recovery process. And this dream was so real. It took 3 or 4 days to process and come to grips with it. But in this dream, God showed me what it would have been like to give birth to her and to look at her sweet face. And it was an amazing gift. And the Lord most definitely works in mysterious ways. But He works. I've been on a long, dark tunnel. And I've come out on the other side, and it is amazing to see God's handiwork, to be part of it. Is just beautiful. And I feel His love and compassion and know what He wants me to do. I can only pray that I continue to follow His guidance and to be a sounding board for others who are facing the decision of abortion. And I want you to know, if you have also had an abortion, that there is help out there. Please message me or call the Pregnancy Resource Center and ask for an abortion recovery class. It will change your life. And the healing and forgiveness that not only you can give yourself, but that God can give you is undescribable. So I want you to know you're not alone. And please, like I said, message me if I can help you in any way in your grieving process and recovery process. And this is for Emily.